gotta be fucking kidding.
Ever since my angsty teenage years, I've had a fascination with horror films like Alien, The Thing, and George Romero's Dead trilogy. The claustrophobic sense of being trapped in an enclosed environment with one or more savagely inhumane monsters makes for a really tense experience. In the case of Alien, it's a poorly lit transport ship in outer space, piloted by a crew of space truckers just trying to get by, when a strange alien life form implants its vicious offspring in the guts of John Hurt. Oh dear. Couldn't have happened to a better actor, honestly. What a crying shame. In the sequel, it's a moody colony base on a hostile planet far from Earth, infested with dozens or hundreds of similar creatures. In both films, the hallways are dark and foreboding, and every vent or corner could be a hiding place for a monster that's just waiting to jump out and devour the characters. This makes for an ideal premise to adapt to a video game, as depending on which side of the playing field you get to occupy, and the intensity of the experience, it's either a stealth game, an action game, or a horror game. And that's exactly what the British developer Rebellion did in 1999 with their first-person shooter Aliens vs. Predator. AVP had you playing as the titular alien life form, as well as the savage invisible hunter from the classic Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie. You got to play as the bad guy and wreak havoc on unsuspecting humans, while also having to be cunning about it, and not just going all guns blazing, lest you get yourself torn apart in seconds by a smart gun. Carrion is a game much of the same mold, developed by the appropriately named Phobia Game Studio, and published by Devolver Digital, publishers of all things edgy, hyper-violent, mid-tier, and highly stylized. In fact, it's not really possible to talk about Carrion without talking about AVP, because this game is essentially a different take on the Alien campaign from that series. A lot of the visual design and aesthetics are reminiscent of Alien. The industrial sci-fi hallways have the same creepy ambiance, the same crawlable vents, poor lighting, and massive pressurized doors. You play as an unknown life form in a research lab that escapes confinement to the dismay of your captors. You are not a humanoid life form, but rather a blob of organs and teeth. A terrifying force that defies nature, a blood-soaked torrent of gore. The game sees you slithering across surfaces, destroying metal grates, crawling through ventilation shafts, and consuming the living. Just as in AVP, you can crawl on walls and ceilings and regain health by eating. And in Carrion, the more you eat, the bigger you get. The movement is animated in great detail. You slither and slide through the game world, bouncing back and forth with a sense of weight and acceleration that is only intensified when you grow in size. Your massive form can crush objects and light fixtures, and as you move vertically, tentacles shoot out in every direction to maintain your forward momentum by pulling you upwards or allowing you to come to a standstill as you hang from the ceiling. Every object in the environment gives off a sound when you interact with it, even down to the ceiling-mounted chains, and the creature gives off so many slimy sounds as it squeezes its way through the facility. The physics can sometimes be comical in tandem with the sound effects, as you reach for things that collide with the walls and cause mayhem and destruction. Overall, the music, ambient noises, and human screams really help convey a sense of dread and disgust, making you feel both powerful and repulsive at the same time. You almost feel bad every time you kill a human. Almost. But you have to. It's how you heal. And if these guys are gonna shoot at me, I'm gonna need some more hit points. Yeah, sorry friends, but a man's gotta eat. Who am I kidding? It's good to be bad.
Oh, bad scares. He just too bad.
Speaking of which, the game's enemies vary greatly. Where you start off feeling quite unstoppable, feeding on fleshy humans armed at most with tiny handguns, later parts of the game sees you dealing with inedible shielded soldiers, mechs, and flying drones. So this game isn't just a mindless action game. You do have to play very carefully and be sure to sneak up on most enemies or play tactically against them. A single guy with an assault rifle or flamethrower can often take you out in seconds if you're not careful. And it might be a smart idea to save those scattered body parts as snacks, in case your health gets too low. Enemies are often hyper aware of every sound you make, and it takes very little to get them looking in your direction, as you'd imagine would be the case when a massive blob swarms down the hallway. Aside from the obligatory power-ups, there are several optional upgrades that can be found throughout each area. These are substances that the creature incorporates into its DNA to alter its form. Some are quite substantial, like the ability to turn into a swarm of worms when submerged in water, while others just improve your energy meter, or otherwise increase your effectiveness. Your maximum size increases over the course of the game, and you eventually end up growing from the size of a living room to a full train car. Being this huge means you have a bigger health pool to draw from in combat, as well as unique offensive abilities depending on your size, but it also makes you a slower and far easier target to hit. Not all of your power-ups stack. In fact, several of them are built into your multiple forms. It's possible to deposit a part of yourself, and not only is this necessary to solve certain puzzles, but it can even be beneficial if you want to take a more stealthy approach and make for a slimmer profile. This option to approach each situation in multiple different ways keeps the gameplay feeling varied. Do you force your way through an otherwise impenetrable barrier in your huge blob form? Or do you turn invisible in your smaller stealth form to pass through a tripwire undetected? The more damage you absorb, the smaller you get, almost as a reminder to be careful and not get too overconfident. There are many different abilities depending on your form, but my favorite one is available at all times from the moment you unlock it. It's an ability where you take complete control of an enemy, and this way you can use them to fight for you and solve puzzles on your behalf. It's a guaranteed way to feel clever when you take control of a soldier and use them to wipe out the rest of their squad. The stealth aspect of this game is very entertaining, but it can sometimes feel a bit frustrating since there's no way to get a quick overview of the layout of a room if it's beyond a certain size, so it's easy to jump in to take out an enemy, only to discover that half a dozen guns are now pointed at you from every direction, and you have to hightail it out of there before your turn to mush. It can also feel a bit frustrating when enemies can shoot you from a vantage point where it doesn't seem like they should be able to see you, sometimes even shooting you through walls, though that only happens on rare occasions. Carrion is very much in the Metroidvania style, so there's a lot of backtracking when you unlock new abilities that give you access to previously inaccessible areas. For the most part, the game does a good job signaling where you need to go next, but it can be easy to forget where you're going if you go away from the game for a while. And this is compounded by the fact that the game allows you to travel back to pretty much anywhere you've ever been in the map. Towards the later parts of the game, it starts to get very difficult to figure out where you're supposed to go next, so I ended up having to use a walkthrough to figure it out, which is far from ideal. All of this would be solved if the game had a map feature, but I can see why the developers didn't include it. It doesn't feel very logical after all that the creature would conceive of space the way that humans do, and it would break the immersion that the game is otherwise trying to build up if you could open up a map menu. I would highly recommend Carrion. I beat the game in about 6 hours, and it only barely managed to overstay its welcome. The game has a free Game of the Year update that adds a full Christmas-themed level, which is fun. There's not much of a Christmas theme to it, except for it taking place during the winter season, the occasional festive Christmas light, and maybe a single radio that plays a Christmas song. You don't get to eat any elves or rummage through Santa's workshop, but it makes for an entertaining bite-sized package. Carrion is not for the faint of heart though, so if you're squeamish about
violence and gore,
it might be a bit too much. Or then again, maybe not. After all, the pixelated art style makes it hard to put a face to these little human blobs. Certainly a lot harder than in AVP, where you often get up close and personal. I haven't quite decided what my next video will be, but I think I might go with something a little lighter next time around. At some point though, I'll definitely be covering the edgy wannabe smash hit of 1996, Harvester. Something about the incoherent art style and full motion video cutscenes strikes me as ripe for a video.
I knew it. They won't leave me alone. Them and the kookaburras. 9! 9!
As unnecessary as it sounds, I would very much appreciate any likes, subscribes, or comments you care to throw my way. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Until next time, I think I'll have myself a snack.